Good. We'll call the meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the May 15th Fishers City Council meeting. We do have one announcement. Jocelyn?
Thank you. June 2nd is National Gun Violence Awareness Day. The Hamilton County Wear Orange Peace Walk will be presented in Fishers by the local chapter of Moms Demand Action. This is a 1-hour event and peace walk starting at the Nickel Plate Trail just north of 116th Street. All are invited to participate and wear the color orange to honor victims and survivors of gun violence. Once again, that's the Wear Orange Peace Walk, Friday, June 2nd, 7 p.m. at the Nickel Plate Trail train platform. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have some presentations tonight. First one, Brad, would you like to introduce our first presentation, please?
Please. Nina, would you come forward? I would like to introduce Nina Hirschberger, a fellow resident in the Del Webb at Britton Falls. Nina has written 10 books herself and is a CEO of her own company that helps other businesses with marketing and has helped them produce hundreds of books. And she's also great with IT, Tracy.
Not that good.
And helps me with my newsletter that I put out to Britton Falls and all the subdivisions that are in my Northeast District, and I thank her for that help. But the reason she's here tonight, she has written a book called Kids Journals for Fishers Parks. And I thought this was really neat, and I thought, we need you to come, explain it to the public, what you've done, why you've done it, and everybody up here has a copy. So, Nina, the floor is all yours.
Well, I didn't know there would be so many people here, so now I'm really nervous. My husband and I mean, he's sitting back there, and he said to me, now, Fishers was established in 1872. That means we got married on Fishers' 100th anniversary. So you can calculate that. We have 7 grandchildren. The oldest 3 are 8. We have 2 6-year-olds, 1 5-year-old, and 1 3-year-old. And I wanted them off the iPads and the television. And so that was the reason I started and created this book. I have done lots and lots of books, so this was an easy thing for me to do. And Fishers has some very nice parks, and we haven't been to a lot of them. So it's time for me and our grandchildren to be able to go to those parks. So what you're seeing, and I'm sorry everybody doesn't have one. I could have brought that many. So there's pages in here. Every park has a page, has the address, has a little bit of information. And what I want my grandchildren to do is say, what does the park have? So, mark the things that they have. What did they like about the park? What were they surprised about? And then if you go beyond the 24 pages of the park, there is collect leaves. And then there's 100 other things they could do in the summer. And then there's 2 math pages. And then just add a little bit more. I said, here's some free concerts we as families can be going to as well. So this is a 2023 edition. I hope to do it every year. I would love any feedback. I would love any ideas. We'll make it even better another year. So thank you.
Thank you, Nina. Our next presentation tonight is the Fishers High School robotic team. I understand they did extremely well state competition. Welcome.
Yes, and they're going to bring their robot up here. While they do, we're going to run a little video.
Don't hit the cameras.
And if members of the team can come up here and kind of describe what we're going to experience.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jack White, and I am a member on the Fishers High School robotics team. I'm actually a senior this year, so this will be my last year on the team, and I was sort of the team manager, so I oversaw a lot of the different things that happened. So I'm here to tell you a little bit about who we are and what we do, so that's what I'm going to talk to you about tonight. We also have our robot here, which will probably do some cool stuff as we talk through what this year was. So to start us off, we are a high school-based team, so we meet exclusively out of Fishers High School. That's where all of our space is as well, so we have a couple classrooms there that we operate based out of. We're looking to expand that in the future, but that's what we have right now. And then we compete each year in a competition called First Robotics Competition. So every January we get a brand new challenge, and then from the ground up we have 2 months to construct our robot to complete that challenge. So this year specifically, our challenge was there were different levels of cubes and cones that had to be placed, and so we built a robot that could operate and place different things in different places. And so there are a lot of different aspects to the team. There are the aspects that you'd think of, such as designing the robot, manufacturing things, building things, tightening bolts, that kind of thing. But there's a lot more to the team than that as well. There's all the soft skills that you learn. There's the business skills and the marketing when you go out and you seek out sponsorships from the community and local businesses. And there's the communication and working as a team at events, because the way that the events run is you actually have multiple teams that function on an alliance, essentially, and they work together to score those points. And so there's a lot that you can learn on this team. This year we did extremely well. We had our first 2 competitions. Those were our district competitions, and we ended up placing 3rd in each of those. And then we actually did a pretty full redesign before the state competition to help us perform better. And then we ended up winning, and we were the state champions in Indiana. And so that was really cool. And so after that, we went on to the World Championship in Houston, Texas, which was a really awesome experience for everyone that went. And that's sort of how our season went this year and who we are as a team. Are there any questions about what we do or anything like that?
It's very impressive.
Thank you.
Outstanding.
How long did it take you to build it?
So from knowing nothing about the game, having no information, to a fully built robot was about 6 weeks. So it is a very large time commitment, a lot of very late nights and very long hours on top of school. And so it's definitely a really fun but really challenging thing to do.
Do they limit your budget on what you can spend on your robot?
So they don't actually limit the budget on the robot as far as the total amount you can spend. So these are some really expensive robots. Our robots run to be between $4,000 to $6,000 per robot, so there's a lot there. But they do limit individual components, so no individual component can be beyond a certain threshold, just to keep someone from buying a whole mechanism and throwing it on there. It promotes them actually designing and doing the work to make those things happen.
What is this powered by, and how long does, I presume, battery, how long does it last? How do you replenish it?
Yeah, so we actually just have 12-volt batteries like the ones you'd put in your car, and we just charge those. We run these pretty hard during matches, so after one match it starts to get a little bit weaker, but you could run it for a solid probably about 20 to 30 minutes before you'd have to swap that out, just because we have a lot of different things drawing the power out of that battery.
Wow.
Yeah.
Does the robot have a name?
Yeah, the robot's name is actually, it's Tiger, being the Fishers Tigers, and we actually made a nice license plate for it that Brandon can show off. You can do a little spin for us.
So do you have both a hardware team and a software team and looking at it?
Yeah, we actually have even more than that. So our team is split up. We have all different sections. So we have a CAD team, and CAD stands for computer-aided design. So they do the actual design work, coming up with how it's going to do, what it will do. We have a fabrication team that builds things and then helps to put things together. And then also, if you saw in our video, there are field components that have to be built so that we can practice well, and so they work on that as well. We have a programming team that does all the code for everything, and they also work on other projects to help our team succeed. And then on top of that, we have a media team that works with public outreach and stuff like that, and that this year was done more just by different members from the team. And then lastly, we have a controls team, and they focus on all the pneumatics and the wiring and everything like that on the robot.
Who actually teaches you how to do this, or do you research it on your own? I mean, how do you go about that?
So there's a teacher from the school that is sort of our team sponsor from the school, But the really cool thing about this organization is the mentorship aspect to it. So we actually have in-field professionals that come in who have different knowledge from things, and they help to teach us so that you can come onto the team with no experience and leave knowing how to make something really awesome. So if our mentors that are here right now want to raise their hand, we have quite a few of them, and they are just members of the community that come in and volunteer their own time to help us out and to help teach us how to do cool things like this and work on a team.
Well, Councilmember Weingart and I have a small token of appreciation for you guys being such wonderful ambassadors for the city of Fishers. And as well, I am certain that there are a number of life science companies that would be dying to meet each and every one of you. So thank you for fueling the next economy here in the city of Fishers. These talents are extraordinary. And John and I would like to just give you guys each a certificate of achievement and shake your hand and say thank you for all you've done.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations. Come on up, everybody. Congratulations.
Okay. All right, you guys want to get lined up for a picture? Line up right here.
I burned myself in the
Yeah, we're gonna take it that way.
yeah. I had to make a, I was making a ghost, and they thought it was a tooth. By the time I was done with it,
What was the prize you guys got for first place?
There were medals and then the honor of getting to go to the World Championship.
Yeah, I just want to say that I'm pretty sure that your teachers and your parents are super proud of you, but Fishers is super proud of you as well. You guys deserve this. It's great.
Congratulations. We do have another presentation tonight, Mayor's Youth Academy.
Yeah, the robotics team, you guys can take off if you want, but if you want to leave your robot here, we might play with it for a while. So. Next up, one of my favorite programs that we do is the Mayor's Youth Academy. And each year, it's a competitive application process for students to apply who are motivated by public service and who are interested in a career in public service. Each and every year, I'm so impressed by these individuals and their resumes at such a young age. Many of them have more than a 4.0, which I didn't even know was possible when I was growing up. And they really have a passion and interest in public service. What happens over the course of the year is myself, Elliot Holgren, Jake Reardon McSoley, and we all meet with these guys once a month, and they learn about different departments within our organization and other nonprofit entities. And at the end of their tour, the end of the informational session, they're posed a question, and they're broken up into teams. And they have just a short period of time to basically articulate their position on a particular public policy question. And we're always dumbfounded first and foremost by their skill sets of throwing a presentation together in under an hour, but then the thoughtfulness for which they approach these public policy questions. It is competitive, and so after each session, we score the teams on who we thought did the best job articulating their policy position. The group before you tonight scored the best over the overall season, if you would like to call it that. And what we allow them to do then is to basically, at their own freedom, to choose what policy question that they would like to articulate to the 9 of you. Lo and behold, these folks picked renters ordinance. So they took some pretty heavy policy questions, and I look forward to you getting to meet these young individuals, and I think they will inspire you about the future of our community as well as our country. So, guys, take it away.
All right. Good evening, Council. It's very nice to be here today. Our presentation might not be as interesting as the robot, but we'll try not to put you to sleep. I'm Patrick Britting. I'm a senior at Fishers High School, and next year I will be attending medical school at the University College Dublin in Dublin, Ireland.
Hello, I'm Savannah Pennybaker. I'm a junior at Hamilton Southeastern High School, and I'm not going to college next year. I'll be a senior, but I do plan on majoring in political science when I do end up going.
Hello, my name is Amal Sophia. I go to Eman Schools in Fishers, Indiana, and I'm a senior, and I'm planning to go to IUPUI and double majoring in neuroscience and psychology.
Hello, my name is Nigel Cronin. I am a homeschool junior, and I plan to be an environmental scientist.
And I'm Lauren Hobson. This fall I'll be going to George Mason University to do international security and law. And the policy proposal that we chose for y'all today is the renter ordinance, the city legal policy proposal that we came up with.
So the question we'd like to pose, that we'd like to answer today is, when you have a vision for your community, how aggressively and by what means should you pursue that vision? What role should we play as a city? And should we let market forces dictate outcomes?
So we first have to talk about housing supply. All the data that we're using is from the 2021 Housing and Zoning Report. So looking at the housing supply in Fishers, in the report it was described as extremely low based on the metric of months of single-family housing inventory, which is basically a metric of how long it would take for the current single-family housing supply on the market to be completely depleted. In Fishers, that averaged about 0.5 months of single-family housing inventory from February to July of 2021, compared to the national average of 6.2 months, which is considered healthy. And the report also detailed that there is a need for 13,500 new units of housing by 2040, which most of those units of housing will be needed from 2020 to 2025.
And as a result of having low access to this resource means that the prices of the houses are going to increase. So as of right now, housing inventory is at an all-time low for Fishers, Indiana, looking to the right at our figure 26. Additionally, we can see that supply issues have inflated single-family home prices within our city, which makes it bad all around for newcomers and anyone who is really looking to build our community. From just 2016 to 2021, we can see that in price per square foot, we can see in 2016 was $104.80. All the way up just 5 years later, we can see it drastically increased to $138 over just 5 years.
Oh, sorry.
So as far as rental companies go, we noticed that from 2016 to 2021, 10% of home sales were sold to non-owner occupants. We also wanted to note that 32.7% came from out-of-state investment companies, as seen pictured here.
So next we're going to look at the accessibility of housing. So what renters of single-family houses are paying compared to owners. And so we're seeing that the average single-family household mortgage payment per month in Fishers is $1,720 compared to what renters of single-family houses are paying in Fishers, which is between $1,400 and almost $2,700, which is substantially more. And so essentially, some renters are having to pay more money for their single-family housing because they're unable to afford the down payments on ownership.
And Now, looking at the demographics, which this would primarily affect. So, the vast majority of new Fishers residents are young adults, making up 32.3% of the new migrants. However, high housing costs may be pushing young adults out of Fishers to become commuters, which makes up the vast majority of Fishers workers. So, if we're trying to boost our community, boost our economy, we can see that inadvertently, we're actually harming ourselves because we're making it less advantageous to actually move to our city.
And next, we're going to look at the impact on low-income residents in Fishers. As the infographic up there shows, 77.3% of Fishers residents earning less than $50,000 are cost-burdened, which means that they are paying more than 30% of their income on their housing costs. And that jumps to 95% or more residents with an income under $35,000. And so these are the people that are most impacted.
To sum up the solution we're proposing, we're having a city-wide rental cap, a rental registration program, and finally localizing out-of-state investment companies.
So for formulating a rental cap, sorry for the large amount of text on this slide, but there is a standard formula that's used to compute rental caps for regions, and that is taking the current market value, dividing that by the net operating income times 100 to get that percentage. And from all of this information is data collected from budget plans proposed in 2020, so money that was actually spent by the city of Fishers. And using all of the different values that were found within the budget from 2020, we can find that the proposal for a cap around 2020 would be 1.64%, which it is a very small number, which taking into consideration how low risk it actually is investing within Fishers, Indiana, because as of a couple of years ago, it was a top 100 city in the nation, we can see how it would be low risk to invest within the city of Fishers. And of course, we totally get this as a very radical proposal to be suggesting, which is why we also understand slightly raising that, since the average rental cap for central Indiana cities is around 10%.
Next, we're going to look at our proposal for a rental registry. So essentially, the city collecting a database of information on which single-family properties are being used as rental properties, who is the owner of the property, who is the resident within the property. This was something that was adopted by Buffalo, New York back in 2005. In order to track problems with these properties, look out for absentee landlords, and really aid in code enforcement. And they've dealt with over 85,000 problem properties within that time because of the registry. In Fishers, a registry would help alleviate aesthetic inconsistencies, and so I know a lot of residents in Fishers have concern about the visuals of a renter's property and the way they take care of their property, and so that would help alleviate this problem. And in the future, if Fishers wanted to enforce housing codes more broadly, this would also aid in that.
So for localizing out-of-state investment companies, we decided to have a local property representative. That representative, we would require one for each property owner. The representative must be within a 2-hour radius and respond within 4 hours for a property emergency and 24 hours for non-emergencies. Local residents do qualify as representatives, and property representatives would be responsible for code violations, maintenance concerns, and aesthetic inconsistencies.
So the overall impacts is that the rental cap would increase the housing supply in Fishers, which would overall drive down housing costs for potential homeowners. Rental registry would mitigate aesthetic inconsistencies and allow for the expansion of future code enforcement, and localizing out-of-state investors would ensure rental properties are up to code. Thank you.
Questions for the young folks?
You guys all running for city council next year?
Any other questions for these young folks?
Well done.
Yes.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
I have a few questions. So you mentioned that most of Fishers workers commute within Fishers. How do you know that, and what jobs mostly commute, and can you explain a little bit more on that to me?
Yeah, so that data was from the housing report. They didn't specify specifically what industries have the most workers that are commuting. But I can imagine that we might see more commuting as we increase our life science jobs here in Fishers, because a lot of those jobs are staffed by young professionals who might not be able to get houses in Fishers. I also want to recognize the fact that there is a fair amount of short travel commuting. So it did specify in the report the different kinds, the different distances traveled and the amount of time. I think there was a substantial portion that did not have to travel that far. And so there tends to be a fair amount of inter-suburb commuting. But we do believe that there is a substantial group of individuals that, for example, live in Indianapolis who don't make quite as much as the people in Fishers that are commuting to Fishers to work the jobs here, that may be interested in working here and leaving Indianapolis, but might not be able to afford the housing costs because they are increasing so much.
Okay. One more question. On the rental cap, would you propose that that be applied just to single-family residences or to apartment complexes, or?
I would say for right now, that would mostly just apply to single-family homes, because the data that I did look at was only applicable to those single-family homes and doesn't include like apartment complexes in the multifamily home. But if the city were interested in making that more applicable on a wider scale, I would say looking at more data of just generally how much both single and multifamily, and then just computing all of that.
Yeah, additionally, we need to balance the people in Fishers who are young and can't afford down payments and do need to rent, but also those who want to own homes and have the money to be able to put down payments, but housing costs continue to increase. And so we do believe that there continues to be a need for a robust rental market in Fishers. And so that's why multifamily properties wouldn't apply quite as much. And we focus in on single family properties because those are the ones that, when out-of-state real estate companies buy up these properties, puts the most pressure on the ownership market and ultimately drives young professionals away.
I think maybe some of the terminology here, when they say rental cap, they're not referring to, say, like New York or Manhattan in rent control.
Yeah.
They're literally talking about the percentage of homes that would be available to rent, like we've discussed.
Because it's such a large issue among, as we've already established, young Fishers residents to actually even be able to live within the city. So just making the city as, appealing as possible to people who would want to be moving here, because if we just have a small amount of homes available, as the years go on, the city is just going to look less and less appealing to people who can't even afford to live here.
I was just going to say thank you for your analysis on this. I feel like you're experts now. I feel like you're our very near future of Fishers, and it's nice to see some of the familiar faces from We the People as well. I recognize you.
Thank you guys for your time and effort over this last year and being such a great ambassador. The rest of the teams are equally as strong and, again, bright future for everyone. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I really was being serious. When I was mayor, I had the same thing that the mayor does. And one of those individuals, his senior year, turned 18, and he ran for city council.
There you go. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, folks, very much. Moving on to committee reports. There was a finance committee meeting last week. We have items for consideration we recommend for approval tonight. Item on the regular agenda and budget financial, item 8, item 9, item 10, item 11. Also in government miscellaneous, we recommend approval, item 13. In addition, as part of moving, we talked about the Redevelopment Commission report for 2022, as well as our TIF districts. And we also started talking, we haven't had any discussions yet about our budget, but certainly heading towards that here over the next few months. The other reports, Health Department Engineering report, are in our agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? So moved. Do I have a motion by Pete? Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Todd. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Thank you very much. Moving on to our regular agenda items. Budget for item 8, R051523A. Request to approve additional appropriation of sewer availability fees for the Grantham Lift Station.
Thank you.
And there is a public hearing with this one as well.
Yes, thank you. For the record, Lisa Bradford, City Controller. The item before you is an additional appropriation for the 2023 budget for sewer availability. As mentioned in the title, this is related to a lift station that will go out by the Grantham development and all the development on that side of Fishers. So as part of the agreement, Fishers is helping pay for the lift station out there, just needed to help with the overall capacity for the wastewater treatment plant.
Any questions for Lisa on this? At this point, we'll also have a public hearing. Any wishing to come forward and speak, please come forward and state your name and address for the record, please. Didn't think anybody would be here for the public hearing, so I will close the public hearing. And any questions for Lisa?
Make a motion to approve.
I have a motion by Pete. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Todd. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Moving on to item 9. 051523, ordinance regarding the City of Fishers Hamilton County investment policy.
Thank you. The item before you is updating our City of Fishers investment policy. As we talked about at the Finance Committee, all investments by the city are governed by state statute. So what our policy does is essentially codify the state statute and say, just specifically spell out the state statute. One weird part of the state statute is it cannot last longer than 3 years, so our ordinance expired. So that is why you see that ordinance before you tonight. And so as part of that, the only changes to the ordinance are the date and then the wording of the investments to that best fit the city. So as we move into a different interest rate environment, is the best interest rate going forward in municipal bonds, which are allowed under state statute, or money markets. And so those are the two changes, and we talked about those at Finance Committee in depth. But if there are no particular objections, we'd like to have first, second, and third reading, suspend the rules, and get this passed so we can start to have a better in-depth discussion of our investment policy.
And this discussion, we will certainly start that at the Budget and Finance Committee
Yeah.
here very soon. Any questions for Lisa?
Make a motion to suspend the rules.
I have a motion to suspend the rules by Pete.
Second.
Do I have a second? Who's second?
Second.
Second by Selena. All those in favor to suspend the rules, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve by Pete. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Cecilia. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 10, ordinance of the City of Fishers approving a short-term loan financing for 2023 fire equipment.
So as we discussed the 2023 budget and adopted last year, included in that amount was an appropriation in cumulative capital development for a loan payment for fire equipment. The SCBAs, which are self-contained breathing apparatuses, so essentially the air tanks that the firefighters wear when they go out on calls, are at the end of their useful life. And so we have elected to take these over a 5-year period. And so the item before you allows us to enter into a financing agreement with Bank of America to replace all those for every single firefighter, and have the next life cycle come through of those. So again, just because it's critical, we're asking to suspend the rules and pass tonight.
Do I have any questions for Lisa?
Motion to suspend the rules.
I have a motion by Pete to suspend rules. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Cecilia. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Motion to approve.
I have a motion by Pete. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Selena. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right. Moving on to item 11, R051523E, request to approve an amendment of a resolution of the Common Council approving an amendment to leasing and taking other actions regarding stuff and auto ban.
So the item before you simply allows an interest rate change in the language for the Stephan Auto Band. As you recall, that is the financing for the Fishers Life Science Park. As we are rolling the bond anticipation note, sorry, that's the abbreviation for BAN, the interest rate that was written in there was written in a very more advantageous time. So it has a cap of 1.5%. That's obviously not where the market is right now. So this allows us to finance the ban at up to about a 6% rate.
Okay. Any questions for Lisa on this?
Can you just say again what ban says?
Yeah,
What that
bond
means?
anticipation note.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion by Pete. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Selena. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Moving on to item 12, economic development. R051523C, request to approve a project agreement with On Point Innovation Park 3 LLC. Hello, Megan.
Hello. For the record, Megan Baumgartner, Director of Community and Economic Development for the City of Fishers. with Lisa mentioning the Stevnato ban and changing some of those terms, I am very excited tonight to bring forward really the full culmination of our life science park. Just to remind everyone about this area, so this is off of 126 and Cumberland Road. If you've driven along Cumberland Road or 69 anytime recently, the big building that you see, that is Stevnato, our Italian glass pharmaceutical manufacturer, building their 500,000 square foot facility with a $500 million investment. List Labs, they should be breaking ground this spring. They are the microbiome company with a $110 million investment. And then in the area in blue, that is our remaining 8 acres. And so when we purchased and received approval from the city council to purchase this 75 acres in 2021, it really was embarking on a new journey and a new industry for us, and we've had an incredible amount of success. And first and foremost, I want to thank your support for this, this new life science park, this new industry along the way. So the final 8 acres of developable land is the area that you see in blue there. And so it's an interesting site. And when we've looked at this potential location for other uses, we were really excited when the On Point team with Meyer Najum approached us about more of a multi-tenant building that had 2 tenants already committed that would go into this space and take up about half of the building within the life science and medical device space. And what's really exciting is now we have an opportunity to have 50,000 square feet of leasable space within our life science park. So for those companies that are either looking to start their operations or have smaller space needs or just really need more office with some warehouse and not a full building on their own, we now have this opportunity in Fishers. So this is a rendering of what that building will look like. This is if you're looking south from 126th Street. So there will be parking along the entire area. Meyer Najum and On Point is working with Kieran Architecture, and they've done an incredible job of really capturing the architecture of Stevnato and List Bio to create something that doesn't just look like flex office that's flat front. So I think that residents in this area, other businesses really will appreciate what this building looks like. So a bit of an overview of the property and the building. They anticipate $15 million in just the building itself. So as we talk to the tenants in those buildings, just like with what you've seen with our other life science manufacturers, most likely a significant amount of personal property will go along with that. Again, 100,000 square feet of life science and medical device flex space. With the 2 companies that are committed to this property, they are relocating 81 jobs. And so I was just doing some quick math. With that total, within our 75 acres, we will have 781 new jobs in Fishers through our life science park, and a $625 million investment just, again, in that one area. So pretty exciting. And then again, a for lease opportunity for life science companies, a great local partner who we've worked with before, who knows our vision for this area. And again, that complete build out of our life science and innovation park within a 2-year period. And just to go over the economic analysis and incentive requests for this. So on the left side, the AV assessed value, so we're anticipating $75 a square foot for the real property investment for this, or I'm sorry, the assessed value for this property. So total assessed value, $75 times 100,000 square feet, $7.5 million. Taking our tax rate, we're requesting a 5-year sliding abatement for the real property. And so then you'll see the columns of the abated amount, which would be the amount that On Point then does not need to pay for their taxes. And then on the far right-hand side is the full tax revenue. When we've done these TIF analysis, I've broken down the value to the schools, but since it's the full tax rate, I included that there to see the value of that over 15 years. The other part about this, and for those on council who have been here before, who have done development projects, even though this is a developer who is receiving this incentive, we have crafted the project agreement in a way that all of the savings for the tax abatement really do go through to them, since it's considered common area expenses or their CAM that they have to CAM and their triple net costs of renting a facility. So with that, with the five-year sliding abatement request, we're also requesting a waiver of the local permitting and inspection fees. Again, that's reducing that upfront cost to the companies that then they're not having to pay as part of their price per square foot with their rental rate. And then requesting the transfer of the 8 acres to them as part of this project. So I just spoke a lot. And then final thing is the site plan is on that right side. So top part of that is 126th Street. The developer and development team and their consultants are here tonight, happy to answer any questions, or happy to have them come up and answer any questions as well.
Thank you. Megan, any questions?
I have a question. So this is not a company coming and building like a headquarters that we've had the privilege of enjoying in this space, in this, what do we call it, Innovation Park?
Yes.
Life Science and Innovation Park. This is a developer creating space that could accommodate many businesses or a single big business, like tenants.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes, so a tenant is someone who leases the space in the building. So in the project agreement, there are 2 tenants who are committed to going into that space. So there are 2 companies, and that is an obligation of the developer that they have a signed lease. They have LOIs right now, but they have to have a signed lease for those 2 tenants to be able to close on the property and for us to initiate the transfer.
Okay, and therefore the jobs associated with this project, these are jobs of those 2 companies.
Correct.
And these aren't necessarily, forgive me, I'm going to put a fine point on it, this is a little different than some of the last ones we've discussed. So these are relocated jobs, not necessarily new hires.
There are
right?
some existing jobs, so some of them will be relocated, but then there is also, we didn't include the statement of benefits in here. That'll be approved at a later council meeting. For that final amount, but there is anticipated job growth with that. Plus, that also doesn't anticipate whoever goes into that remaining
other space.
Yes.
Okay. And do we happen to know, frankly, I don't need to know like the names of the companies, but do we know, are those 2 companies coming to us from in Indiana or outside Indiana? I'm curious about that.
Yeah, so they're 2 local companies and looking for a place that they can help have an ownership right within that, but then also looking to locate around like-minded companies. So you mentioned that they're not corporate headquarters. They are their corporate headquarters.
Okay.
It's just not building and owning that building outright just for their single use and ownership of it.
So are these like local, like Fishers companies?
No, they're not local Fishers companies. They're in central Indiana. If you see in there, it is, it's listed in the definitions. Certus Medical and Radiological Care Services are the 2 companies that have committed to this development group.
I see. Thank you very
Sure.
much. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate the detail.
Megan, just a couple of questions. On the AV, the abatement, does that include the personal properties, these tenants that are moving in?
No, so this is just the real property.
Just to clarify.
Yep.
So what they bring in from personal property, there will not be subject to any abatements on that particular
Correct.
personal property technology.
Correct. And that's, again, so to put a fine point on that, we've had over, I think, $700 million of new personal property committed within that park. So that all of that would then get captured, and that the true value for these companies is in the property.
And certainly we have some obviously really large companies in this life science corridor right now. This kind of brings an entrepreneurial flair to it where we can bring in some smaller tenants that might be just starting or growing and also be able to partner with these other larger companies and really enhance their growth.
Yes, absolutely. There's some really exciting conversations with Purdue through their advanced manufacturing and pharmaceuticals program. They have lots of different companies that they're talking to, the relationships that we have with our life science companies. I do think that we'll quickly fill this space, probably even before they break ground, just because there's such an excitement and momentum in this park.
Great.
The bigger question is where we go next.
Exactly. Other questions? Selena?
I have another question. So this fills up within 3 months. What's next?
We're working on it.
Yes.
I'm going to make a motion to approve.
I have a motion by Pete to approve. Do I have a second? I have a second by Todd. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Great job.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 13 on the agenda, R051523D, a request to approve an interlocal agreement with Hamilton County concerning a one-time distribution of public safety income tax proceeds. Welcome back, Lisa.
Thank you. For the record, Lisa Bradford, City Controller. The item before you concerns an interlocal agreement with Hamilton County. So as you guys may recall, in 2019, the Hamilton County Local Income Tax Council adopted the 0.1% tax to pay the costs of Hamilton County Public Safety Access Point and other connectivity costs. So that's what the PSAP stands for, Public Safety Access Point. The Hamilton County Commissions and Operations Board was therefore created to advise on financial and budgetary matters. And as we have had this tax for a few years, there's been a strong influx of cash, and this has led to the need to do this one-time distribution. So as you guys can see in the interlocal agreement, it lists all the applicable entities of Hamilton County, and then the breakdown. So the allocation is based 60% on population, 20% on square miles, and 20% on duties. So the Board of Commissioners and the County Council have already approved the distribution in the interlocal agreement. And then once we approve and sign, we can receive our share of the distribution, and our share of the distribution is $1,079,452.
I just want to take a moment and thank all the partners in Hamilton County. We spent quite a bit of time working through this, and I think every other community has approved the interlocal but us, just because of the way the schedule worked. That our council meeting was a little bit later than others. But it's been a good working relationship, and it's an opportunity for us to invest in public safety with these dollars and put them to use closer to the man and woman on the street, so to speak.
Yeah.
So this is a motion to approve to collect $1.6 million, Scott?
Yeah.
That's one
we
way
need
to
to move.
It's an easy motion.
Yeah. You're making a motion?
I am.
A motion by Pete, second by Todd. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Government never turns down money. Moving on to item 14, R051523B, a request to approve additional appropriation of public safety income tax proceeds.
So the item before you is an additional appropriation allowing us to spend the money that you have just agreed that we can receive. So as you can see, it was advertised up to 1.5. Since we only received a little over $1 million, that's obviously all we will appropriate. We advertised high just to be safe and make sure we were covered. But this will allow us to spend these in 2023.
And just to be clear, the items for that would be like the body cams that our police officers wear, those types of fees on an annual basis, technology for our lab services. That's the items that this money would go towards.
Sure. It's all public safety.
Yes.
We do have to have a public hearing. At this point in time, I'll open up for a public hearing. Anyone wishing to come forward, please state your name and address for the record.
Chief, you want to come up?
Seeing there's no knowing when to come forward, I will close the public hearing. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I have a motion by Pete. Do I have a second by Todd. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Moving on.
Can I just ask a quick question? Like, will we receive like the final determination of how the funds were spent?
Yeah, we can. We can provide a report. We can provide a breakdown, definitely. So yeah, that will be very easy to do.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 15, R051523F, a resolution of the Common City Council for the City of Fishers approving a certain parking fee for Geist Waterfront Park. Good evening, Jake.
Good evening, everyone. My name is, for the record, Jake Reardon McSoley, Director of Recreation and Wellness for the City of Fishers. And John, just as you mentioned, before you is a resolution to approve a parking fee structure for the newly constructed Geist Waterfront Park. This particular resolution has already been approved by the Board of Public Works and Safety last Tuesday, May 9th. And tonight we are requesting that the City Council now affirm that approval. I think it's important to share a little bit of context about this park and the proposal here. For those of you, I'm sure you're well aware, but for the larger public and community, Geist Waterfront Park, a little background, it is a park on the east side of Fishers, just south of the Oleo Bridge. 70 acres of property, approximately 40 acres have been completed and developed. We actually just opened for a soft opening approximately 3 weeks ago on April 22nd. And the primary draw to this particular park is a 900-yard beach. It also includes a substantial pirate-themed playground, some trails, a really nice pier, kayak and non-motorized boat launch, and in the summertime we'll have concessions as well. So it's gone very well and been received well in the last 3 weeks. As we contemplated how to operate this property, we determined 2 separate and distinct periods in the calendar year. One would be beach season, which is approximately Memorial Day to Labor Day. The other would be everything other than beach season, approximately Labor Day all the way to Memorial Day. A couple important notes. Outside of beach season, so approximately Labor Day through Memorial Day, the park operates very similarly to every other Fishers Park we have in our system. There's no parking fee structure at that point. It is open and available during park hours for us right now. That's 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And everyone is welcome at any time to come enjoy and explore the park. The big significant difference is once we shift into beach season, we will have lifeguards on staff. We will allow swimming. Currently, we do not allow swimming, although you can explore the beach, and a lot of families have been and enjoying that, getting their toes in the sand. We will have swimming daily, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. during the beach season. We'll also have a vendor providing rentals for non-motorized watercraft like kayaks and stand-up paddleboards, and then we'll have a vendor providing concessions. We do anticipate during the beach season a very high volume of usage, and that's the driver for this resolution in front of you. I do want to be very clear, though, just to make sure everyone's on the same page. Everyone is welcome at any time at Geist Waterfront Park during park hours. Really what we're talking about is a parking capacity situation. So to be clear, during beach season, everyone's welcome all the time. There's no parking fee. It's free for everyone. During the beach season, all pedestrians and cyclists are welcome at any time. There's no charge for any access to the property. And then during the beach season, if you're a Fishers resident, you'll be able to download what we're calling a Fishers Smart Pass that will allow you access in and out of the parking lot. And you can bring guests with you that are either residents or non-residents, if you'd like. Non-residents are also welcome to drive their own cars in to visit the park, and if they have a guest, a Fishers resident with them, they can use the same Fishers Smart Pass to enter free of charge. So really the only scenario for any kind of charge would be a non-resident during the beach season time that did want to park their car at the property, and then we would have a charge of $50 per day. A little bit of background too on that pricing, just to give some frame of reference. I think most of you or all of you are very well aware of a property, Saxony Beach. And just to give you a little bit of context, Saxony Beach, we charged $7 per person. Very typical to see a variety of residents, but also a significant number of non-residents using that property. And there was about an average of 4 to 5 people per group coming in. So approximately $35 per group coming in the door versus $50 for what we're contemplating with this resolution. So, and I don't know if you had a chance to check out the new property, significantly different. Saxony Beach actually did not even have restrooms, parking, no playgrounds, about 1/5 the size of the beach that we have at Geist Waterfront Park. So a little bit of context, be more than happy to answer questions. Yes, sir.
The Fishers residents that are not in city limits, are they included?
Yeah, thank you so much for clarifying this. Absolutely, yes, unannexed are included.
And then when will a Smart Pass be available?
That's a great question. We're really close. I'm looking back at my friends here this week.
Once we can get PowerPoints up, then we're good to go, right?
That's right.
Well,
Tracy, you the man, okay?
The publicity went out, and in Britton Falls, we have nothing to do, so everybody's calling me. I can't get it. I can't get it.
Yeah, they're calling us too.
Other questions?
Yeah. Oh, I do have concerns, of course, about the parking fee. It seems extremely high for a parking charge. But before we discuss that, and really the issue here for me is that amount. I think it's absolutely appropriate for a non-resident to have to pay a fee. I think a affordable fee is what I'd be looking for. But before we talk about that specific price point, I need to back up a step and say, and ask, and forgive me, Jake, you're on the hot seat, so I'll direct my questions to you. how did we create a park without enough parking to accommodate what we think the capacity or what the anticipated volume should be? I'm concerned about that.
Yeah, so I actually, thank you for bringing that up. I'm glad to talk through that. So to break down some numbers, there are 240 parking spots in our lot. We anticipate somewhere between 10 and 20 of those being used for staff. We are going to have a significant staff made up of not just lifeguards, but also gate attendants and several DPW laborers. We also have a swimmer load, a maximum swimmer load for a safe cove in ratio of about 300 swimmers. Okay? We anticipate, if you do the math of an average car load being approximately 2.8 people for those parking spots that we just talked about, somewhere around a peak 650 people using the park at any given time. We think that's actually very appropriate, knowing that there's going to be a portion of folks using the water, swimming, but also several other amenities. So there, at any given time, could be quite a few people playing on the playground, using the kayaks, enjoying concessions, playing on the sand, exploring the trails, and so on and so forth. So we've kind of focused on safety first as our mantra for this park from the very beginning, and it's right-sized with that in mind. If we were to have a far larger parking capacity, we would then have a far larger swimming issue and experience that could potentially not be safe.
So just to be sure I understand, so are you saying like the parking spots, our capacity is in proportion to the capacity of the like beach area? Like where's the breakdown here? Is it the capacity of the park is equal to the number of parking spots, or it's not?
Essentially, our stance is yes, it is. The parking reflects the peak usage at an appropriate and safe level.
Okay, so therefore, couldn't we? I'm trying to figure out maybe a more delicate solution to this capacity problem. So the problem is more people arriving to the park. It's not parking, it's like the capacity of the beach is really the true problem here. Like we need to every now and then maybe say we're closed for the day until people leave, or
so this aside, completely aside any parking fees, any non-residents, just Fishers residents, we do anticipate there is a very real scenario where we may get to a capacity level where all parking is filled, and we would have to essentially communicate out, put up signage, and have our gate attendants kind of monitor that and provide assistance and customer experience to people that would be arriving. And then as people leave, we could welcome more in. But we do anticipate that potentially being a scenario during a really nice, hot summer day.
So my concern, of course, is using a parking fee as a mechanism for crowd control. And I'm just wondering, and I believe the way that is positioned right now with an extraordinarily high price point, it comes across as being unwelcoming. And that is because, I don't know the last time you spent $50 to park somewhere. You don't even pay that much for Disney World, right? So it feels off and out of proportion. Are there any other solutions that you've considered to, I think everyone can appreciate like capacity. Things sell out, like that is typical. I think what is atypical is a $50 price point asking a visitor 48 hours before they arrive to make a $50 purchase to park. That's what feels really
I think
often off-putting.
I think
That's
a
my
couple of
opinion.
clarifying points there. It's not just to park; it's to utilize the park facility, right? And then, secondly, I think Jake hit the nail on the head. Our number one priority was safety, and there are capacity constraints that come with the safety issue, right? So that cove, fortunately or unfortunately, is only so big. We can only have so many swimmers out there that Jake, in his 20 years of experience in aquatics, can tell you, hey, this is a safe perspective. And then we were dealt with the difficult choice of who should have priority with capacity constraints. And the taxpayers of Fishers are going to be paying the bill for this park whether they utilize the park or not for the next 20 years. And so we felt, as from a policy perspective, when we filter safety, when we filter the constraints, we filter towards the priority of Fishers residents being able to utilize that park. Now, to Jake's point, if for some reason we find out that the demand isn't there and the constraint decreases, the more the merrier. But for right now, we are on the side of safety, and we are on the side of the taxpayers of Fishers who are going to be paying for this wonderful facility for a number of years to come.
And again, I'm not opposed to a non-resident having a fee as long as it's acceptable and appropriate. Again, my strong concern is it sends a message to people outside of Fishers that they are unwelcome here. And as the mayor just said, the priority is the doors are open as a priority for people who live in Fishers. That is not, I believe, the community that we live in, and our destination is welcoming to everyone coming to Conner Prairie and IKEA and Topgolf, and we have a new event center that'll be open soon. We welcome people to visit our community and enjoy themselves and spend money here. If we are pricing things so that it's inaccessible for certain people, that is not a welcoming community, and that's not who we are. I want to make one last point, and that is in the council action form, it did say, due to limited capacity, as you've addressed, as well as the cost to operate the parking lot. I have not heard anything today, or the last two presentations I've heard, about we need to generate revenue in order to operate the park. Yeah. Is that correct? Is that true?
Yeah,
it does state here that we need to generate costs to operate the parking lot. I am not hearing today that is an issue.
Yeah, there are two things. Real quick, just to kind of touch on one thing I think you brought up, and I think this is probably an opportunity for us that I appreciate you sharing. The $50 per car may have sticker price for some. To me, and the way that I think we're hoping this will be translated to the average guest, would not be, hey, this is $50, it's a lot. Rather, I've got 4 people, I've got 5 people in my family. For me, for example, I have 2 sons and a wife, so it would be $12.50 a person. I start thinking of what would I pay for $12.50 per person. That doesn't really go very far. And to be honest, Pinheads or Conner Prairie or Topgolf, I'm paying exorbitantly more than that. Probably pay more than that just to take them out to a pretty modest dinner. And so we did not think this was an exorbitant price, but I think it's an opportunity to reframe that so that it sounds like it's a little bit more palatable than that $50.
I just want to say the problem is $50 for parking. We are not saying it's $12.50 per person for a non-resident to be admitted.
Yeah.
And that makes all the difference.
Right.
And in addition to that, it's very important to say the other barriers, you have to make this purchase, $50 parking, 48 hours in advance.
Sure.
These are putting up barriers between visitors and our amazing park that I think we do want to welcome people to because it's an entry point to our community.
Yeah.
So with that being said, again, I'm not hearing we need to make money. That being said, I am going to make a motion to lower the price point to $10 for a non-resident. That is affordable, that is accessible, and it does send the message to visitors that you are welcome here. So I would like to make that motion, not $50, $10 for non-resident daily per car parking.
Well, I just want to say that what I'm hearing from residents and small business owners is that the $50 does seem really high. But what I'm hearing is that,
Hang on. I've got a motion.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Do I have a second?
Well, I would like to counter the 10 to something higher, or at
Well,
least with the marketing or something.
Well, do we have a second?
We got to handle this motion first.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Do we have a second? If I don't have a second, then the motion dies. Okay, now Crystal, you go right ahead. Now the
Yeah,
motion has
so-
been presented. There's no second, so now you can talk.
Yeah.
Go
well,
right ahead.
Okay, so what I just want to say, sorry about that, by the way.
Quite all right.
I'm breaking the rules and whatnot.
We'll keep you in line.
I appreciate that. So I'm kind of hearing the same things from residents and small business owners as well, that the $50 is pretty high. And I think where everybody is seeing in the resolution is that it is related to parking. But I think if we were to change it to like $20 for parking. But when you mentioned everybody in the carpool, that does make sense to me. So I think a better resolution or a better idea might be with the marketing in it and saying that it's not just parking, it's parking at admission or something like that. So, because $10 for parking, yeah, I like that idea. But if it's inclusive, if it's inclusive of all these other wonderful things.
It also would cause quite a bit of, so imagine if it's $10, so now an individual says, I'll just drive my car. And now you have 20 people that show up with one person in the car. You're denying not only Fishers residents, but probably other people that would want to utilize that park because there isn't significant parking around. So now all of a sudden you could fill up a good portion of the parking lot with just individuals. So now you're not utilizing the asset to the extent that you could be.
And to what the mayor's saying, that the $50 helps drive efficiency.
It drives people to.
Yes. So if I'm going to pay this, then I've got to maximize that, and so it cuts down on pollution with a bunch of cars coming extra that everybody's driving themselves because it's $10. And to go back to the parking lot issue, like people want more green space. They don't want more parking lots. So I would absolutely disagree with wanting more parking. I mean, that's the last thing I hear from residents anywhere. So there's cost associated. This is what frustrates me sometimes about government. When you run a business, there is a cost associated to this. I know we're not running a business, but when we're running a park like this, there's a significant cost to keep people safe. And in this world, with all the things that can go wrong, we've got to make sure that we're driving that, and it's instead of a narrative turning to we're trying to prevent people from being there, we're actually I think we're trying to protect even low-income Fishers residents, and they're paying taxes already, and they want to go enjoy this. And I'm elected to serve Fishers. That's who I'm elected to serve.
We all are. And I think the point is we don't want to seem unwelcoming to anyone outside of Fishers.
And people, and I get that, but people will assume anything. They take things and they can assume all sorts of things. I've looked at social media. I know what people are saying. And they take something and they twist it into something else that isn't reality. That's not, then you get accused of all sorts of different things. You don't even know me. Nobody's called me and asked me or even get to know who I am as a person. You just assume things about me. So, I think $50 is reasonable. I would actually push back if our costs are significant and it's burdensome to our taxpayers and our residents aren't getting in there because a bunch of other people are driving in. I would push, can we look at this in a year and reflect on and go, does it need to be $55? I'm not saying it does. I don't know necessarily how you landed on that, but it seems reasonable to me that you're driving efficiency. You're trying to cut down on as much cars sitting there and that. So that's where I would say, I understand what you're saying, but I think that some of that is communication, some of that is narrative to the community that we want to make sure we're communicating right. Hey, this is the bang for your buck. This is what you're getting. Get all the family in there and go enjoy Fishers.
If I may add, in a budget finance committee, and I always said you measure and manage. We gotta start somewhere, and this is a good place to start. I don't think this is unreasonable at all. In fact, I've not heard from anybody in my district this is unreasonable. Nobody. And if you look at this as an investment, our taxpayers invested $30 million on this. They're sure heck paying for it. They're paying for it every day in their tax bill, and and they should be able to enjoy it. And if others from out of this community want to come up and enjoy the facility, and then we're talking 3 months out of the year. Yeah. The other 9 months, there's no cost whatsoever. And again, it's a safety issue, it's a capacity issue. You get a carload of 5 people, that's $10 a person. I will say, Jake, you have 2 kids and a wife. It's a lot cheaper than 2 wives and 1 kid. I just want you to know that. But I think $50 is an absolutely reasonable fee, and to suggest that we go up for $10, I think is ridiculously low. And I think it just, to me as a taxpayer here in Fishers, I can't live with that. $50, I think, is a good place to start.
I agree with that. Just to put it in perspective, I was downtown Indianapolis a couple weeks ago, and I paid $20 to park a business day in a parking garage where I got to have no fun, got to see no green space, got nothing out of it except for a parking spot. So, and given that the cost, for a family of 4 at Saxony was 35, this provides much more entertainment value to a family. I have heard from residents, several of them, and several of them are very supportive of the $50 for outside of Fishers because they do have concerns with the park reaching capacity, and they want that park to be reserved for those that are within Fishers that are paying for the park. One actually said to me, this is not a regional park. If it was a regional park, then Indianapolis and Fortville and all the other surrounding communities should have chipped in and helped pay for this park. So therefore, I am for this moving forward at $50.
The other thing, to put it in perspective, the water park in Carmel, it's $16 for an adult, $13 for children 3 to 15 years old, and seniors 65 plus is $13. I mean, you go places, people are coming here, it's entertainment, it's something to do. It's, you go to Conner Prairie, there's going to be a charge. You go to Topgolf, there's a charge. I mean, so if you put it in perspective, this is something that is for our community, and everyone's welcome to come.
I have a question. So has there been any consideration to putting the price on like admission? Or why was that not considered?
We actually thought it was far more welcoming to have actually the park open to everyone all the time. So on foot, on a bike, if you get dropped off, if you're, in a guest of a car, everyone's welcome. Really, truly, the issue is the parking lot capacity, and that's where this kind of fee came from.
Jake, if the parking lot, if we had more parking spaces, enough to accommodate the perceived or estimated amount of traffic from in-city and outside the city, would we be here talking about this today?
Well, to John's point, we will measure and reflect. We will measure and manage. We don't know. We are guessing what the volume will be. We have projections, but we'll find out this summer, and that will give us.
I think it goes back to your initial point, though, Jake. To achieve that amount of parking would then put us into a scenario that would, from a safety perspective, like we could go build a parking garage. We could have 1,000 parking spots, but the beach and the waterfront is only so big, and we just can't handle that level of capacity.
I just, again, want to state, I have never heard of using a parking charge as crowd control mechanism.
I've seen it down on a beach in Florida. Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, Jocelyn, let the other counselor speak too, please.
Of course.
So,
Thank you.
Let me jump in here real quick, because I think I'm the only person who's sitting here on council who drives by this thing twice a day minimum. Okay, so I go by this park the whole time. I want to set aside the $50 conversation for a minute. My questions are going to stem around, and just going back to Ed and Scott. We had blast on the bridge. We had massive, massive parking problems throughout Cambridge and throughout Canal Place. You've got businesses up along Oleo Road and 96th Street. You've got the boat launch across the street. You've got Canal Place right there. You've got a new subdivision for Canal Places right there. These guys will game the system. And then we got people running across the road, right? And to go in there so they can get in there for free. I don't really take issue with the $50 and whether we call it a head charge or whether we call it a parking charge. That's insignificant to me. The $50 is not really a major deal when you break it down the way we're trying to break it down. However, I may offer this up instead. If I make the motion to approve this as it sits for 1 year and bring it back next year to let's get some metrics on this thing to find out whether or not it works, to find out what kind of parking problems we have in the other locations, to find out what kind of receptivity we have to our park. That way we're only making a 1 year decision, and then we can get those metrics in there to make a much more informed decision by saying this is what happened last year, this is what we received there, right? And charge the $50 this year to find out whether it works or not. So that'd be the motion that I would make. But Ed, I'm going to warn you, we're going to have parking problems out there, and I'm going to start getting calls because they're all my neighbors. So just FYI.
And if that is a motion, okay, I was going to say the same thing, Selena. If that is a motion, I would second that, because we have to look at this as, because we don't know operation costs, right? If you have so many people out there, we need to have more EMS out there. We need lifeguards, or we need ticket takers, or I don't know, whatever it is. I don't think there's a lot of things, and it's not your fault. We just don't know, right? It's nobody's fault. I mean, there's no way to really be able to measure that without some educated guesses. But to Pete's point, there's a lot more dynamics going on here, and we have to be careful. Guys, I mean, the Geist Blast, I mean, it was just, it was a wonderful experience, but I can imagine the headache, associated with everybody around.
Look, I mean, to Councilmember Peterson's point, I guess, you're not passing a constitutional amendment.
Yeah.
Okay, we're setting a fee
right.
to an asset that we're not certain exactly. Has Chief Gephardt been thinking about parking issues? Absolutely. Have we been thinking about this park opening for 3 years? Absolutely. Will we evolve and adapt as the plan comes forward? Absolutely. If we need to adjust the fee, we'll adjust the fee. If we need to turn it into a per person because we have parking issues, we'll evaluate that. This is to get us started.
So again, measure and manage.
Yes.
That's exactly what. I have a motion.
I did, yeah.
And then Selena, I think Selena seconded.
I have a motion by Pete and a second by Selena.
Roll call. Could I have a roll call vote, please?
And to be specific, is this a motion to approve the resolution, or is this a motion to put the 1 year?
I made the motion to approve the resolution as
With
a
a 1 year.
1 year resolution that would be revisited again next year prior to opening for the beach season.
And I'm requesting a roll call vote tonight, please.
You ready?
Sure.
John Weingart.
Aye.
Cecilia Coble.
Aye.
Pete Peterson.
Yes.
Brad DeRamer.
Aye.
Selena Stoller.
Aye.
Todd Zimmerman.
Aye.
Jocelyn Vare.
Nay.
Crystal Newman.
Nay.
David Giffel.
Aye.
7-9, the motion passes.
7-2.
I'm sorry, 7-2.
It's all right.
9 total.
It's all right, Jennifer. Thank
Those
you very
students already win an election. We have a whole new council.
Thank you.
Jake, thank you very much for taking a little heat tonight. You did an outstanding job. We appreciate everything you do for Fishers. Appreciate
I
bringing this
agree.
forward. We look forward to measuring and managing how this park works and what's going to happen. We're looking forward to all the good things it's going to bring to Fishers. So thank you for being up here tonight.
Thank you very much for the kind words.
Yes, sir.
The much anticipated PowerPoint.
Move on to item 16, an ordinance of the Common Council regarding Chapter 100 of Public Safety Nuisance and amending Chapter 36 of this City of Fishers ordinance. First reading.
I thought they were back for the work session.
I know. Well, this time we'll have a PowerPoint presentation, correct? Just so everybody knows, the honest, we did have a work session on this before council tonight, so this will be even more informative. Thank you.
For the record, Ed Gephardt, Chief of Police.
And Lindsay Bennett, City Attorney.
So we're bringing forward a public safety nuisance order or ordinance for the city to review and look at. The reason for this is the massive amount of calls for service that we get to certain businesses throughout Fishers that inundate, take the time off the police's hands for patrolling, being proactive in other measurements of the city. We find that we're answering repeated calls for service that can be handled in a partnership form with the businesses to educate them on how to reduce alarms, reduce calls for service such as suspicious and others. So we prepared a few slides to walk through here. First and foremost, there'll be a public safety team that is over this ordinance. That public safety team is myself, Chief Arusa Fire Department, and Director of Health of the Health Department. Basically, this is, like again I already said, for excessive repeated calls for the same commercial properties and industrial properties throughout Fishers. Right now, as I checked today, the Business Solutions Group put a slide or dashboard together for me so I can monitor these businesses. And right now, there'd be 10 businesses in violation of this particular ordinance, meaning they've each had 15 violations through the last 90 days. And so we would be reaching out to those businesses systematically to work with them. Our goal is to form a partnership with them and to reach out and to first, and Lindsay will talk more about the education piece, but this is strictly to target commercial, not residential or industrial. This is not for medical facilities, government entities, or schools throughout our area. The violations will work for calls for service to the buildings, valid complaints have been made that we validate, and or citations that have been written to them in the past by law enforcement. We're going to break this down into a few instances, and then Lindsay's going to go into what each of them will mean. At 7 instances, you'll get a notification or written warning. At 10 instances, you'll get remediation agreement between me and the business, or the public safety team and the business. And at 15, you start to get fined as a chronic user. Lindsay, if you want to jump into that more.
Sure. So as Chief Gebhardt mentioned, we've kind of broken this down into 7, 10, 15 framework. So at the business's 7th call for service, valid complaint or citation, they'll be sent a warning letter that just advises them, hey, you're getting close to 10 calls. And at that 10 calls, you'll be asked to come in for a meeting with the public safety team and enter into a remediation agreement. Once they hit those 10 calls for service, complaints, or citations, the public safety team will reach out with a mandatory meeting and ask them to come in and execute a remediation agreement. The remediation agreement parameters are in the ordinance. I have them up here on the slide as well. And by the way, Carrie Adriano has already posted the slideshow from the work session earlier onto the website, so it is available for the public as well. Some examples of the remediation agreement, if there's abandoned vehicles that are the issue, the public safety team is trying to find, common sense solutions to abate some of these excessive calls. So we're looking at things, as simple as register vehicles for your customer if you own a hotel, address broken down vehicles on lots, proactively keep an eye on the parking lot and identify unwanted vehicles and work with the public safety team to have them removed, get them tagged. Another issue that we face pretty often are false alarms, and we would possibly ask a business to train their employees on alarm systems, make sure that their staff is attentive to the alarm system, and update and maintain the alarm system to make sure it's working properly. Another big complaint we get are suspicious persons or suspicious people. At a hotel, we may ask the hotel business owner to issue 1 card key per person, post customers only signs throughout the business, and address any solicitation that may be occurring in the lobby that's not business related. So the next milestone would be 15. So if a business owner receives 15 or more calls for service, valid complaints or citations, and they have not come in to meet with the public safety team, have not executed that agreement, or they have come in but they're just not making any steps to actually complete the agreement, and they hit 15 calls, then the public safety team will designate that business as a chronic violator. Now, it's important to note that if the business has come in, they're working in good faith with the public safety team, they're making significant progress, then even as they continue to get calls for service, complaints and citations, they would not be designated as a chronic violator. So, what does a chronic violator mean? It's a 6-month designation, and once you hit that step, you will be fined $250 for any subsequent call for service, complaint, or citation. It does also allow the law department to take additional action to abate the nuisance, such as injunctions for maybe businesses that are just not in compliance and are just continuing to have problems. I had some examples here. We already kind of went over this in work session, so I'm not going to belabor the point. But I did put some examples in here if you want to look over the slideshow, but just to go over one that I think is really important. So the business owner has hit 7 calls, complaints, or citations, and was issued a warning notification. The business owner then hit 10 calls, complaints, or citations, and they met with the public safety team. The business owner did execute the remediation agreement. They are substantially complying with the remediation agreement, and then they hit their 15 calls, complaints, or citations. They are not a chronic violator in that scenario. Again, I won't belabor all the examples, but they're there if you'd like to look at them if you have any questions. We have had some public outreach efforts on June 8th, 2022. The city met with the 96th Street businesses, April 12th, 2023, and met with the CEO of One Zone. We have some additional planned outreach following this reading, and next week we'll begin meeting with Fisher's businesses for Q&A. And Chief Gebhardt has said that his department will be reaching out to some of those locations that may be at risk at being subject to this ordinance, whether they've got 7, 10, or 15 or more calls. And then in the week of June 19th, following the next city council meeting, we'll have additional meetings with those hotspot locations and follow-up virtual business meetings for a final Q&A. It's important to note that this ordinance will not go into effect until August 1st, and that is to allow time for that outreach to be completed. Happy to answer any questions.
Any question for Lindsay or Chief Gebhardt?
Yeah, I have a question. You met with Jack Russell. What was his opinion about this ordinance?
He was really supportive of it. He agrees that companies are concerned, especially small businesses, about the impacts of some of these frequent offenders on the perception of people attending or frequenting their businesses. So he was very supportive, and I do anticipate that we'll have a letter of support from the chamber as well.
I do have a question. It sounds like you're going to be working very collaboratively with them, but you reach an agreement, and that agreement is in place. They're working with you, but the agreement just isn't quite getting the results that you're expecting. Will they have the opportunity to really go back and modify that agreement based on feedback, so that way they're not being charged as long as they're working towards a plan that will achieve results? Because I can see some of these agreements may need to be modified or something like that once you kind of to figure out what works, what doesn't work.
Yeah, I think we take a team approach, and that's why you have Chief Arusa and Director of Health with us, is we can all take a perspective of understanding. I think you have the three entities that care most about the public safety at best. And I think if a business is working with us, the goal here is to work with them, because we're not starting with fines, we're ending with them. We have had times in the past where we've had issues with businesses, and we've tried to reach out and try to get owners. The fact is, a lot of these owners don't even live in the state. So you need to bring them back in to help get compliance and managers that are already in the business here in Indiana. So I think that this helps us get that pull that we need to get those owners here, because it means something to be in the pocket. So we can adjust at any time, and I think compassion and partnership will be a play.
And I think to your question, Councilwoman Stoller, our goal here is for the business entity and public safety to be working together. We're not under the assumption that every time we come up with this plan together, that it's going to achieve the outcome. So as long as they're working with us,
yeah,
that's the measurement of success. Not that, okay, we have this plan together and you do all that effort and you still have calls. It very clearly states that as long as you're in compliance with the plan and you're working with us, you're not going to be charged a fine. Because some of these businesses, by the nature of what they do and the volume of what they do, they just have a lot of calls. But if they're working with our team and they're doing the best they can, that's the measurement of success. We're not trying to get them, so to speak, after they hit a certain one. It's let's get to the table together, and as long as we're working together, nobody's getting fined anything. The only time they would get fined is if they literally never put a plan together or choose to completely disregard the plan that they came up with. That's when they would enter into the fine situation.
Okay, next question is, there is a business and their elevator breaks down on a regular basis and you have to call for help. What do you do with a business that it's just a maintenance issue? You know, and sometimes getting the maintenance people there to get it fixed. You know, I mean, you got to help people when they're stuck in an elevator. Trust me, I appreciated it. So, I mean, how do you work on those situations?
Well, in those situations, we would not respond to any need of our community. So we respond, and then we talk about it later. But you take the one profession that has like the 8-month backlog to fixing, right? Elevators is a long wait, a very small crowd of people working on them. I think that we are partnering enough to work with the business to work through the solution of the problems over time. I don't, like the mayor said, this isn't to go out and get people, it's to actually help reduce calls for service. So even if you see an improvement in some of the reduction in the calls to the business, that's an improvement over what it was 6 or 7 months ago.
Okay.
I have a question. Chief, you just mentioned, well, my question was, who exactly from the business will be invited to this conversation? Did you just say the business owner, even if the owner lives outside of the city or elsewhere in the country? Like,
Sometimes, and just from past experience, I mean, you have business owners here, that's easy and tangible, but sometimes you'll have people who own business, and these are the hotels in particular, but they do not live here. Now, it has been hard to get them here to work with us, but if they do get here, and I think this will help to facilitate that relationship of being able to engage them. And sometimes what I found a really easy solution is new management here. And you see that sometimes as well because they're not in tune or they don't know because they're in a different location. I think this hall helps for all those scenarios.
and what we're essentially trying to do here is establish communication, right? So with that, would you be open to also going on site and meeting with these businesses on site rather than, I think the plan was you inviting them to your space and the, you know.
It's just a mandatory meeting.
It just doesn't matter where.
Yeah,
Okay.
as long as
Okay.
both
I
parties
just
meet.
wanted to like,
Yeah.
We've collaborated at length about that, Chief Arusa and Director Elton and I, and we see ourselves going on site for some of this. Absolutely.
okay, that's good. And certainly open to like frontline staff or people that could actually make a difference in these scenarios, right? Okay. Thank you.
Have first reading.
Have first reading. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 17 on the agenda, 091922C, consideration of a rezone of 1.76 acres from R2 to C1, allow for Magnolia Grove Salon. The address is 13484 East 116th Street. We're on our final reading. Selena, you wanted to comment about the Planning Commission report on this, please?
This came before Plan Commission. We did discuss it. Basically, the Plan Commission has no recommendation. There's no recommendation. It's not favorable, it's not unfavorable. We had 9 people at Plan Commission. 5 voted for favorable, 5 voted for unfavorable, 4 voted for favorable. But basically, you have to have 6 Plan Commission members because it's 11 people in order to send a favorable or unfavorable recommendation. So based on the fact that we did not have that 6th person to send the unfavorable or favorable recommendation, there was no recommendation from the Plan Commission.
Okay, thank you. Megan, good evening. Welcome.
Good evening. Megan Vukasic, Director of Planning and Zoning. So this item before you, I'm going to let the petitioner really give a thorough overview of the proposed rezone, but there's a lot of history here, and I just want to go over that during the staff presentation. So this is a proposed rezone from R2 to C1 with conditions. Currently, the property in question is highlighted here in blue. This is near the intersection of 116th and Oleo Road, and there is an existing single-family home on the property. When Kroger was first developed and then also expanded in this area, significant consideration was given to the boundaries of that commercial PUD. And at that time, there were several neighborhood meetings to discuss the mounding and buffering from the residential properties and the distance that commercial would expand to the west. Because of the history in this area, we have heard from several neighbors to the south during the rezone process. That mounding, was limited to really the east side of the subject property here, and that was because this was a single-family home. And so now we're seeing a rezone request from the current property owner to commercial to construct a hair salon. So during this process, we held 2 neighborhood meetings, one in October of last year, and then the most recent being in April, to discuss this project with the neighbors that we were hearing remonstration from. During these meetings, neighbors expressed concerns about the impact of additional commercial development in this area related to traffic, safety, and increased congestion. Some of these residents would rather see it remain residential. Some of the residents that we heard from do understand that commercial may be more viable in this area, but really wanted residential conversions like this to be preserved for small business owners and be owner-occupied, limited to a single tenant. So all of that public comment was heard at the Plan Commission meeting during the public hearing, but several of those neighbors are here tonight, and I do want to just acknowledge them in the comments that they provided. So the remonstrators that we had heard from are Donna Bond, Angela and Andy Mattingly, Jacqueline Thompson, Chris and Elizabeth Cook, Dan and Kim Cook, and Laura Villani. So I believe many of those people are represented here today. After the meetings with these neighbors to discuss the concerns, the petitioner has agreed to reduce the size of the building and has agreed to conditions related to the hours of operation, lighting on the site, and uses of the property. Any development standards, if this were approved tonight to C1, would fall to the Fishers Unified Development Ordinance unless otherwise deviated from in the conditions provided. A&F Engineering did review the impact of this development on traffic and provided alternative options for access. I apologize, I'm going to pull up the elevations and site plan here. One of which was obtaining access to the north from the church property. This memo was included as an attachment on the council agenda. It should be noted that the traffic analysis included both this rezone and a future rezone item that we're going to discuss later on the agenda. If this item is to move forward, staff would like to continue this conversation regarding this alternative access to see if that can be achieved. I also want to highlight that the Fishers 2040 plan does list this future land use as suburban residential. As Councilwoman Stoller mentioned, during the May 3rd Plan Commission meeting, by a vote of 5 in favor and 2 opposed, members of the Plan Commission voted to send an unfavorable recommendation to City Council. However, that motion failed due to the lack of votes in favor of the motion. At minimum, 6 votes would be required. And so Plan Commission sends no recommendation to City Council. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Tom Perkins with Paganelli Law Group to give you an overview of the proposed rezone.
Thank you, Megan.
Good
Thank
evening.
you, Council.
Welcome.
I don't have any robots or brilliant treatises on policy. We have a hair salon. It's the Magnolia Grove Hair Salon. I'm here on behalf of Rachel Petrie and her partners who seek to take this combined parcel of 1.8 acres, more or less, and create a hair salon. So as Megan covered, here's the site. It's roughly 116th and Oleo Road. It's nestled between the church to the west and the north, and commercial with the Super Kroger right next door also. Right on 116th Street, thousands of cars go by there every day. It's right now an abandoned house. It's unoccupied. It's important to talk about what the highest and best use is for this property now. Decisions were made in the past about what the north side of 116th Street was going to be like. So as it sits today, council needs to decide what's the best use for that parcel. Our position is a hair salon. And along with that, additional uses, perhaps in the future, small office space. We have committed to limiting the uses, so we're asking for C1. It's currently zoned R2, but we're asking for C1. It's the least intense commercial zoning that is available. We've further curtailed other uses. I believe you have a copy of the proposed ordinance. We'll get to this later too, but we are willing to discuss even further limitations of scope as we go through the process. This is what the property is like now. It's an abandoned house. It's going to need to get torn down for something else to go in no matter what. The original site plan was almost 9,300 square feet. It included a dog grooming facility and fairly extensive parking.
Through the meetings with the neighbors, there were concerns about the size of the building, the number of parking spaces, the number of chairs, the operating hours, the traffic and the parking. Our team took that to heart, made changes, reduced the size of the building nearly 25% down to roughly 7,000 square feet, no longer including dog grooming, and that's important both from the parking perspective and the traffic perspective, because a dog grooming or a pet grooming salon is going to have higher throughput than the hair salon that we are envisioning, a relatively high-end salon. Reduce the parking spaces to 49. So when you talk about capacity, that's enough to achieve the busy days without going overboard so as to invite other people to park there, or it will perhaps limit people lollygagging. We've also made commitments to the operating hours, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. This hair salon is not going to be open at 8 a.m. But again, looking into the future uses, there may be offices there that are going to be open at 8 a.m. We anticipate opening roughly 10 in the morning and having the last appointment in that 7 to 8 p.m. time frame, and the employees vacating probably by 9 p.m. Closed Sundays. That was based on conversations with the church and in deference to them. There won't be any Sunday operating hours at all. And like I said, we've agreed to limit the uses, basically strictly office type spaces. So this is the revised site plan. Revised design, still residential appearing, which is similar to the businesses that are up and down 116th Street on the north side. We're committing to that. This is our own review of comparable facilities and what the impact is on parking, or not parking, on traffic. So you can see that a high-end beauty salon is perhaps on the low end, but at least comparable to other things like a dentist's office or a lawyer's office that might go in there sometime in the future. And finally, I just want to reiterate that we've chosen the least intense commercial use for this site. We're willing to continue to work with the city on the development standards to make sure we're keeping with those. We're willing to work with the church on an entry and exit. We acknowledge that another curb cut onto 116th Street probably isn't ideal, but we haven't been able to secure permission or an easement with the church yet. We are willing to look at that, and frankly, that was our original plan. That would be ideal for us. So it's still on the table from our perspective. And then some of the concerns were also expressed about perhaps people making U-turns in front of the church. We're willing to work with the city on whatever other mitigations necessary on the traffic side of things. So at the end of the day, we are looking at the highest and best use for this parcel that's nestled between the church and the Super Kroger. Our position is that this high-end hair salon, Zone C1, is appropriate, and we ask for your approval tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the petitioner? If not, I'll make a motion to approve.
I'm going to make a comment, John. I apologize. I know you
Okay.
were looking for this, but as a person who has been on the council long enough to be here as a town, I was on planning commission when, I wasn't on there when the original Kroger went in and all that stuff around there. I have, however, been on there since we did the Super Kroger, okay, and we've been on there ever since. There was absolute commitments made, at least by me, sitting there when I was on council for both votes, that we would not allow commercial creep down 116th Street, okay? And I like the petitioner. I had breakfast with her. She's super nice. I think it's a nice business. I think the building looks right and all that. However, I'm a man of my word. I made my commitment to those folks over who live in that area. We would not allow that commercial creep to continue down in that fashion. And again, there is massive traffic issues at that intersection that I go through at least twice a day. So I am going to be a no vote here, and I'm going to stand on that commitment that I made when we were a town with the group that was across the street, not to allow that to go forward on that basis. So, thank you.
I respect Pete's position, but times have changed. The best use for that is commercial. Our vision is smart, vibrant, entrepreneurial, and me being a serial entrepreneurial, loves to see this. This country was built by entrepreneurs, and this is a great example for where a entrepreneur coming into Fishers hopefully will succeed, not for me, but maybe my wife. So I'm in favor of this. I will make a motion to pass it.
I have a motion by Brad. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
And I will comment.
Probably need a roll call.
Well, do a roll call vote.
John Weingart,
Nay, and I'm in the same position Pete was in. I have to stand by my word as a town, when we're down, so I'm a no. But I do like the project.
Cecilia Coble.
I'm a no. I wanted to make a couple of comments why. There was a video with verbal commitments by the Fishers Town Council at the time. We were transitioning into a city, so those commitments stood as a city councilor person coming in. The Kroger was coming in, so we were kind of a part of that. In the past, I understand what's going on. I think what really needs to happen is evaluate that whole corridor, starting from the dentistry all the way to the entrance of Great Eagle, because we have other homes sandwiched in to those sections, and so we need to determine what's the overall, I guess, goal or vision for that corridor. And I have a hard time making this, because I do like, I want to support entrepreneurs. I think the design is nice, but I just think it will create a trickle effect that we need to, so that all the neighborhoods, all the residents that are around there impacted by that understand the possible future of these other homes that are sitting there, and the impact. And so I also feel that we need to support the commitments that we made to those residents who are here. They were there years ago when the whole negotiation of the Kroger, and I think we really, as a city, need to look at the layout moving forward of the future of those houses, so that it looks aesthetically pleasing, that we understand. Now, I did approve single-use changes that were made, rezone on 126. Those were they were beautiful, single users, entrepreneurs. I would love to have seen this as a single user, smaller footprint, and for those reasons. But like I said, if you would work with the residents on doing that, but I think that ship has sailed, then I'm not going to be in favor of that. But I do feel we need to look at that corridor a little bit more carefully, and work with all the residents there.
Brad DeRamer. Selena Stoller.
I'm going to be a no, simply because I want the council to keep their promises. I am pro small business and would be for this if the parking spaces were limited to 24, as that is pretty much what the promise was made, and have recommended an overlay for this area in order to kind of allow us to keep those promises and to allow small businesses to go into this area. But I'm a no.
Todd Zimmerman.
I'm a yes. I welcome you to Fishers, an entrepreneur. We welcome you with open arms.
Jocelyn Vare.
Aye.
Crystal Newman.
Aye, and I'm very surprised that there's so many nays. I feel like we have to support our small businesses. We support so many huge businesses here and corporations. We have to support our small business communities.
David Giffel.
I just want to say, Fishers has changed over the years. We're not sleepy old Fishers like we once were. Sometimes you got to accept the change and go forward. I think it's an appropriate place.
I think, I don't remember which one of you made the commentary, but we are very supportive, and I think Megan Vukasic is excited to work with the neighborhood and the residents on a longer-term plan. We have the tree farm there, there's property along that corridor. And I do think, to David, to your point, time is changing, and therefore we need to sit down with the neighbors and identify some new visions for that area that we can all kind of collaborate on. So that will be happening here in the near future with our planning department.
I just want to thank the petitioner. Your calls to me, like out of the blue, just, hey, what do you think, instead of demanding, forcing this, and everything I push back on or we discussed, you're like, yes, let's work through that. We just want to be a good community member. That's all I've heard the entire time, and I really appreciate that, so welcome.
Well, thank you for all of your consideration, and even comments.
5 yea,
5.
4 nay. It passes.
Thank you all.
Congratulations. Moving on to item 18, 022023C, consideration of a text amendment to the UDO. Final reading.
So for this item, the city has been helping neighborhood HOAs with amending their covenants and restrictions to help manage investment companies, which we heard a lot about in the presentation earlier this evening. And we've heard from neighborhoods that it's challenging to meet the high percentage requirements that are set in their covenants and restrictions to be able to make these changes. So per the request of Councilman Dreamer, the city is bringing forward an amendment to the Unified Development Ordinance that would require any new HOA to limit the percentage of votes required to make an amendment to governing documents by a simple majority vote for items involving budgets, changes to HOA operations, changes to rental restrictions. All other covenants and conditions and restrictions would require a 75 consenting vote to change, which is the current cap written within state statute. So during this process of looking at this UDO update, we did hold several meetings with key stakeholders. So this first went to the Advisory Plan Commission in March, and during that public hearing, we heard from residents and HOA representatives who were supportive of the amendment, but brought up additional issues that HOAs have with conducting regular business. So when you all saw this for first reading, it was really limited. It was a simple language limiting any voting item to a simple majority, but we heard HOAs express some concerns with just conducting regular business. And then we also heard from developers and builders that they were concerned with how this amendment would impact the development of subdivisions, really the build out of subdivisions, which wasn't something that we were intending to impact with this language. So we first met with developers and builders to discuss these changes. This included several local builders, but then also representatives from Baggy. And so we have added language within the language that you see tonight to address their concerns. And so I don't believe any builders or HOA or Baggy is here tonight. They have okayed this amendment, so we are all good there. We also held an HOA virtual town hall in March, which we invited any HOA representative in Fishers to attend, and I believe U.S. Council representatives were also invited. And so we had 22 participants on that call, really gave an overview of what we were looking to achieve, and heard from HOAs on what their current challenges are with holding meetings or their covenants and restrictions. So this went back to Plan Commission in April, and at that meeting, we had a second public hearing, and we heard from an additional stakeholder, Tom Murray with Eads, Murray & Pugh, who represents several HOAs in Fishers. He suggested language to the amendment, which has been incorporated into this latest draft, and I just really want to highlight and acknowledge his contributions to this language. He could not be here tonight, but we do have Kim Sutter here from their firm and want to thank them for their insight on this matter. A third public hearing was then held by Plan Commission in May, and at that meeting we had a representative from the Avalon HOA, Josh Hoosier, and Tom Murray with, again, Eads, Murray & Pugh, that spoke in support of the ordinance. And so I'm happy to bring forward the language. I think it's in a much better position than it was when we brought it before you for first reading, and I just wanted to highlight some of those high-level changes in this text amendment. So first, we have a definition for governing documents, which aligns with the state statute. We address voting for condo associations, as that can be different than voting for single-family properties. We address quorum percentage requirements, especially for larger neighborhoods. We allow for amendments to governing documents related to HOA operations and rental restrictions to be a simple majority. We define those HOA operations, both what they are and what they are not, so that way it's clear. All other amendments to CC&Rs may be approved by no more than that 75% vote of members. Amendments to governing documents would not take effect until the certificate of occupancy has been issued for the last home in the neighborhood. That was to address the concerns with build out. But then we also made sure to add in language that aligns with state law for subdivisions that take longer than 7 years to build out. So that way we don't have the issues and concerns that Councilman Dreamer brought up. So staff is recommending a favorable recommendation. I think we've done our due diligence to get this in the right place, but happy to answer any questions that you have.
Just a point, a question versus what you verbally said in the thing. You said the state law is 75%. The state law is up to 75%.
Correct, yes.
Okay, so
Thank you for that clarification.
Okay, because Del Webb's are 67%, at least in Indiana. I don't know. I assume nationwide. Okay, just want to make sure
Yep.
nobody's getting confused on that. Thanks.
Other questions?
I just want to say thank you very much. And you had a team of people with different perspectives and a lot of time invested. It's transformed from first reading to today. And I just want to thank everyone that participated, shared their opinions. I think it was, from my perspective, a great process and a great outcome. So thank you.
I was just going to say that this is long overdue, so I'm glad that we've got this going on.
And I made a motion to approve.
I have a motion by Pete to approve and a second by Selena. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it.
Thanks, Megan.
Outstanding. Moving on to item 19, 051523D, consideration of a rezone from R2 to C1.
Yes,
Planning office, go right ahead.
Yes, thank you. So this is another rezone. This is for first reading, and it is in the same area as the last rezone that we discussed. I did just want to highlight that because of the conversations that have progressed with the neighbors in this area, we did hold a neighborhood meeting last week, and I wanted to just bring up what we discussed with those neighbors. So first, let me show you the proposed rezone. This would be for a financial office building. Again, it's a single-family property currently zoned R2 residential, and they would be requesting C1 commercial. This is the proposed layout. It's a 12,000 square foot office building. And then I'll also show here. The proposed elevation. So this is about a 1.5 story building. The neighbors were opposed to this project for similar reasons as the Magnolia Grove rezone. And some of the items that were requested or discussed, which the petitioner is going to go back and take a look at, what they can do to address these concerns. The first would be limiting the number of parking spaces. Neighbors requested to bring that down to the 24 parking spaces, which would be similar to what Moore Dentistry has just to the east of this property. Limit the square footage of the building. It's currently 12,000 square feet. Moore Dentistry is at 4,500 square feet, so reducing that to align more with the dentist office. A request was made to have the architecture mirror more of that traditional pitched roof residential style and limit it to 1 story. Explore site access alternatives to alleviate traffic concerns, so look at if traffic or access could be provided from the Kroger site. Limiting uses to office only and being a single tenant, lighting restrictions, and then preserving the large trees in front of the property. So this is for first reading tonight, and we're gonna continue to work with the neighbors through this process. This will go to Plan Commission on June 5th, but we anticipate holding another neighborhood meeting once revisions have been made to bring everyone up to speed. I didn't see anyone in the audience that was familiar that we've been working with, but Jason Schnur with KRM Architecture was the petitioner on this case. But if there is a representative from Drive Planning here tonight to provide an overview of the petition, I would invite them up to do so. Does not look like anyone's here, which is a bit surprising to me. Certainly, I touched base with them earlier today on this meeting, so, but I can answer any questions that you do have, or try to.
If no one's going to
one's here, I'm not giving a first
I wouldn't
reading.
give a first reading.
No.
I would recommend my council members not to do that.
No.
I mean, that's, I'm not for this. This is not anything conducive with anything else around it. There's, we've really gone and worked hard toward that residential style feel to any, low impact. I don't like that the traffic study was put together with the salon. I think that slants things because they obviously will have a lot more traffic there. So, and if nobody's going to bother to come,
It still goes to planning.
Still goes to planning
Doesn't
commission.
stop it.
that's fine. No,
Still gonna go to planning commission here next month, correct, Megan?
Yeah.
And then you're
First
gonna get
reading's
a
not required to go to planning
non-recommendation, or a negative recommendation, then it's coming back to council, either which way, so.
May want to
so I
remind
guess
them what
that's
date it is.
procedural. I don't understand why that would be even allowed, but that's.
Well, Chris can chime in
We
here,
got
but
rid of the first reading for a while and sent it directly to planning
Yeah,
commission, and then people.
It's
have to
an-
have
it's an
that first
extra
reading
step
time.
that we
It's just the
elected to
extra
do
step
with
we
that
have
first
No, I
reading.
get it.
to try to give the petitioner ideas if we had any issues with it was the only thing. I think they've got a pretty good idea where this council sits at it now after that, so let them go through and see them at planning commission in a month, or 2 weeks, or whatever that is.
2 weeks. Well said, Pete.
Thank you, Megan. Moving on to voluntary annexations. Hopefully we can run through these since they're all final readings. Item 20, Willow Crest Lot 3.
I have no presentation prepared
Motion
for
to
these
approve.
next.
Do I have a
Second.
I have a motion by Pete, a second by Selena. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Moving on to item 21, final reading. Motion approved.
So moved.
Motion by
Second.
Pete, second by Selena. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Moving on to Willow Crest Lot 5.
Motion approved.
Do I have a second? I have a second by, motion by Pete, second by Todd. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Item 23.
Motion approved.
Motion by Pete, do I have a second? I'll
Second.
second. Motion by Pete, second by John. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Quite all right. Moving on to item 24, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Todd, motion by Pete, second by Todd. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Item 25, do I have a motion to approve? Motion by Pete, do I have a second? Second by Todd. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Moving on to Flat Fork PUD annexations. This is a first reading and public hearing.
Yeah, so these next two items are related to the Flat Fork PUD, which you all saw last month for first reading. This will come back for final reading next month, but they have moved forward with the voluntary annexation. This does require a public hearing.
Okay. Seeing that we do, I'll open it up for a public hearing. Anybody wishing to come forward, please state your name and address for the record. Good evening, sir. Welcome. Could I have your name and address, please?
My name is Brett, B-R-E-T, Anderson. I live at 8899 Mole Drive.
Yes, sir.
And most of you probably don't know where that's at. It's in the Bermuda Triangle of Fishers. I have been fighting since 2000, whatever. I've lived here since October of 1982.
Oh, my.
Same house. Since 2007, when the first bit of activity started happening, I've still got the original print. I've been in this triangle for I-69 expanding. It runs in my backyard. Anything from 116th to South Street South. South Village is right across the street. And now I have two apartments to the south of me, Pullman and South Point Village. Purpose I'm here is that I could go on and on about everything. I actually love living in this city, or I would have moved, okay? My issue that I have is I feel like a second-class citizen here because I have the area that we live in now is most of the people either moved away or died, okay? The houses are getting old. The people that have purchased, or the corporations that have purchased, the Joe Nixons, the South Village, the Shrewberries, the place looks like 38th and Shadeland, okay? All I've asked for are sidewalks from the sidewalk that ends at South Point to past Suter's house up to South Street is 0.3 of a mile, okay?
Sir, can you say that again?
The area?
The area, yeah, the
Okay,
sidewalk.
Lantern Road.
Yep.
You go South Lantern Road and it curves, there's the two apartments.
Yep.
As you're coming back north, okay, you have Apple, Mole, and Birch.
Yeah. Sir, are you talking about the annexation, or are you talking about the, we're talking about an annexation?
Oh, I'm
or the-
sorry, I thought this was the
community
See,
forum?
I did it again.
Not public comment.
Yeah. Why don't you
Can I
hold
hold
that
that
thought
thought?
and come back up when I said
Never
community
mind.
forum, and I'll let you talk first.
That's why I was trying to figure.
When you said Lantern Road, I was like, whoa. But you'll get your chance to talk, okay? Great. Okay, we're still we're still having a public hearing. Seeing that no one's up here for this particular issue,
Have first reading.
we've had first reading. Move on to item 27. Same thing. Open it up for public hearing. Anybody wishing to come forward, please state your name for the record. I will close the public hearing.
Have first reading.
We had first reading. Now we're on to now we're on to community comment. Sir, come on back up. And we'll welcome you again.
He gets 3 more minutes.
This is and we're talking about a sidewalk.
We're talking about trying to get a sidewalk of some kind. Lantern Road, 0.3 of a mile from the apartments up to where we could actually walk to use any of the beautiful expansion of the city, okay? We don't have sidewalks. I don't care if somebody could put an asphalt, something has to be done. I believe I'm in your district, I think.
Yes, he is.
If you'd love to come over, I'll buy your lunch. Let's walk from my street to lunch.
Yeah, on my dash cam, I have caught walkers on the street several times.
He's well aware.
You are fortunate to have Mr. Giffel, because he will take you up on that offer, and then I will hear from Mr. Giffel. Yeah,
you can join
I'm
us.
happy to. It's a walk away from
And
my
his
house.
lunch is a big meal.
Are these unincorporated, Scott? Are these unincorporated areas that
I don't believe they're
restrict us?
incorporated.
Well, Megan's suffered our wrath some on some of the meetings too, but the thing I think depended on the school, the original Fishers Elementary, where the original high school was at, whether it's going to be destroyed, stay as is, or get rebuilt. Nobody knows. You have all kinds of rumors.
I think they've come to a conclusion
Yeah,
they're going to
they
build
have.
a new elementary school there.
That's what I heard Saturday,
that's what I heard.
which-
And then I think the other part that complicated factors it on the east side of Lantern Road, they did that drainage project that created quite a ditch there.
It is quite a
And
ditch
so then
because they ran out of money.
From a sidewalk perspective, whether people would be comfortable dedicating the right of way to then put a sidewalk in there.
Well, right now, about 2 original people own their property there.
Yeah.
The rest of it's rental people. And if you come and take me up on that, you'll see how well kept everything
Dave and
is.
I, we'll come buy you lunch. How about that?
I will take you up
all
on
right.
it. Again, I apologize for speaking.
No,
out of-
you're fine.
No, it's fine.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for coming up and talk. Yeah.
I sat for 2 hours. through
Yeah,
your-
you earned it.
I know. You're a poor guy.
You guys, I was loaded.
You're
I
ready.
would have PowerPointed. If you want a PowerPoint next month, I'll bring a PowerPoint. So,
And sir,
thank you for your time.
And sir, thank you. And I don't want you to feel like a second-class citizen.
Yeah, no, I appreciate
Okay,
it.
so you're welcome here to speak anytime, and they'll come out and.
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
Anybody else wishing to come forward?
Tracy, we can talk tomorrow.
I'm not
Yeah,
speaking.
come on,
don't worry.
Tracy. What are you complaining?
Providing a little assistance, hopefully. But PowerPoint has been winning tonight, so we'll see how this goes. Sir,
Maybe.
which file I'm after here?
What's that? There was only one PowerPoint on there.
Could it be this guy?
Yeah.
All right.
Nope.
Nope. Oh. Here it comes.
That's it?
And there you are. And just right arrow key will advance.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
I
Good
do
evening,
have a
Bob.
PowerPoint. Hey, John. I also have copies of all these pictures for. So, good evening, Mayor Fanis, President Weingart, council members. My name is Robert Evans. I live at 10707 Burning Ridge Lane. I'm the president of the Quaker Ridge Homeowners Association. This is a picture of my house. So I pay $7,000 in property taxes this year, and I'll pay more next year because my assessed value went up. In my small community of 65 homes, there's not a single home that would be valued under $500,000. This is the street that I live on. This is Burning Ridge Lane, which when I asked the city to resurface, they tell me that the Pazer system says it doesn't need to be resurfaced. The street has not been resurfaced in the 30 years since it was built. My response to that is 2 words, and the first one is bull. You can guess the second one. This is another picture of Burning Ridge Lane, the street that I live on, that doesn't need to be resurfaced. This is Gatwick View Drive, which was resurfaced last year. Burning Ridge Lane doesn't need to be resurfaced. Gatwick View Drive was resurfaced. This is Hamilton Pass. This is a concrete street that was approved as a concrete street 30 years ago. This is what the city of Fishers considers to be an adequate repair of this concrete street. This is another repair of Hamilton Pass. The street needs to be properly repaired. It's a concrete street. It needs these areas saw cut out and new concrete poured. So I read also that the city of Fishers is putting in ADA compliant sidewalks in Spyglass Hills and Rolling Knoll. Spyglass Hills is about the same age as Quaker Ridge. Rolling Knoll is 10 years newer. We don't have ADA compliant sidewalks. When will we? So the city of Fishers spends millions of dollars on very innovative, very important new projects. In the meantime, those of us that live in the established neighborhoods see our infrastructure continuing to deteriorate. If nothing can be done about it this year, then at least when you're doing your budget for next year, put in adequate funding to support the infrastructure in the established neighborhoods. That's it.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Good to see you again.
And the Council President Weingart, thank you he's brought this to my attention. I drove your neighborhood today. I spoke with Jason Taylor, our engineering director, and you are, believe it or not, right on the bubble of what would be resurfaced. And I do believe that this upcoming year, we have a good opportunity on the asphalt components. In full transparency, the concrete roads require a significant sum of money because, to your point, repairing those at this point is almost pointless. We need to tear all the concrete out and rebuild the road, and that's a significant progress or significant project that is going to cost a lot of money and be very disruptive. So we'll have to plan for that. But I do believe, I'm very optimistic that the asphalt sections of your road will be addressed in this upcoming fiscal year. So it's encouraging to know that. On the concrete piece, you have to bear with us. You know, those roads that they decided to build concrete 30 years ago, good news is they last for a while, but when they no longer are functioning, they're very difficult to repair. And if we're going to repair them, we want to do it the right way. And that will take a little bit of time. But I appreciate you bringing this to our attention. And as I said, Councilmember Weingart has been pretty diligent on your neighborhood's concerns. And so I'm optimistic we'll get the asphalt taken care of next year, and we'll start putting a plan together for the concrete for a permanent fix, not a one panel here or there.
Are you thinking the permanent fix would be to tear out the concrete, put in asphalt?
Yes,
yeah.
Or some variety of it. We've had some success with pulverizing the concrete, milling off a little bit of it, pulverizing it, and then putting asphalt over the top of it.
Okay.
It just
so
depends on. Yeah, it just depends on the engineering associated with that particular concrete road. And you know, I'm not the geek that can speak about that, but we have those folks, and we'll be in touch on that. Thank you, sir.
Very good. Thank you.
Hey, it's Ross Reinhardt, 7704 Creekside Court. Good to see y'all. I wanted to just share some thoughts on a pattern that I've kind of been hearing in some of our meetings, and I heard tonight of a bottleneck. Traffic and parking comes up, often. We'll be considering a new housing development, or we were talking about the parking lot tonight. It comes up as a bottleneck. I would definitely agree with the sentiment. I don't want any new parking lots. That, you know, the last thing I want is another parking lot to have to walk through. But as an entrepreneurial city, we want to be able to help people grow, or build businesses. And the thing is, cars don't spend money, but people spend money. So if we could remove that bottleneck of how many cars can you fit into a space, you can have more people to come and more businesses. And how do people get around? Well, we walk, of course. It's how we're going to leave tonight. And so I would just encourage us to continue to think as a city about how can we invest in walking extenders. Of course, I'm a fan of bicycles and getting around. But I think there's other things that are necessary too. Because for me to go from here out to Geist would obviously be kind of difficult at best. It's quite a ways. But if we had other walking extenders like public transportation, that would be something we could use to continue to connect our communities in ways that allow us to not have to account for all the parking and traffic. As another example, if I was regionally, say I was going to walk down to Indianapolis, that sounds ludicrous. But if I could jump on rail that runs down the highway right of way and gets me there in 15 minutes, it suddenly sounds a lot more practical. So as we hear traffic and parking come up as those restrictions, I just encourage you to remember that and think about what are ways we can remove that bottleneck. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to come forward?
We said tomorrow, Tracy.
I heard you. Undoing what I started.
We have one more public comment, I think, Tracy.
Sorry, I'll get out of your way right now.
My name is Ryan Post, 7503 Hickory Woods Drive South. So I found out last week that I'm a code violator. Turns out you're not allowed to have chickens in Fishers. There's no exception for it, which puzzles me because Carmel allows you to have 6 chickens, and every other town around here has chickens. And so I was looking into the chickens, and my wife was like, no, you can't have chickens. And then whatever. Then we were apparently incorrectly told that you can get an exemption for the chickens before or after you get caught. It's no big deal. It's just do some paperwork. So I got chickens, and then actually my neighbor and I got chickens. So we were very excited that my neighbor has 5 kids and I had 1. And so we split these chickens, so that coop actually spans both properties. We actually also have a garden that spans both properties. And we were very excited about this joint thing going on, but I'm not sure who called it in. I suspect it was his ex-wife, not any neighbor who's concerned about it, or even a Fishers resident. But I guess my question is, can we, why do we have a ban on chickens? Why can't we have 6 chickens like Carmel, or maybe more chickens? Or, I mean, as far as I could tell from the problem with chickens is occasionally there's a smell. So why not have an ordinance against that? If you've got a problem with roosters crowing, why not treat it like a dog barking incessantly in the middle of the night? Why not address the specific problems of chickens instead of just saying we can't have chickens? I actually wasn't planning on bringing this up yet. I happen to be here for the robotics thing. But another question was, are rabbits allowed? I mean, they're pretty similar. I couldn't find an explicit ban on rabbits. So I guess I was just wondering or proposing, can we at least do like Carmel, maybe a little better? I mean, I'd work with maybe a smarter thing than just 6. I mean, 6 little ones, 6 big ones. The fact that I'm splitting properties, can I have 12? Or I guess I have 6, so he has 6, whatever. Anyway, the code person hasn't come back, told me I had to get rid of my chickens yet. I'm still waiting on that. It's been a week. But anyway, that's what I'm asking.
I do not believe we allow for chickens today. Is that correct, Megan? And I know that, and I'm going back to memory here, I don't recall the last time council considered chickens.
We were a town.
It was a town.
It was prior to us being a city.
It's been some time since that discussion has occurred. I do know that. So you're correct in everything that you said. We do not allow for chickens today. I don't believe this is something that's ever been on the council agenda since we've become a city, as far as I know.
Bees.
We took up bees.
We took up goats
Yeah.
for the.
Goats for the
schools,
schools.
well, the
Schools,
chicken
right.
coop for the schools too. I mean,
So
yeah,
it's really the-
educational stuff. Yeah.
Whether council wants to consider that or not is probably for a discussion at some point.
Okay, so we'll talk about it. See what we can do.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to come forward? I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Do I have a motion, a second? All in favor, please, aye. Aye, we are adjourned. Have a great week.